back to the news today. It is the day that some say never ended. On November 29, 1947, the United Nations voted in favor of partitioning Palestine, which was at the time under the control of the British. Some 65 years later, the concept of two states for two peoples remains just that, an idea which, despite the backing of most of the world, cannot be translated into a concrete reality. Despite the rejection of the partition plan by Arab nations, the Jewish leadership in Palestine would go on to declare independence, sparking a regional war and the mass exodus of population across the Middle East. And with me here in the studio to understand a little bit more about this decision and how it's implemented or not implemented, or what is happening nowadays, Dr. Eddie Cohen, Professor of Middle East Studies at Bar-Ilan University and a former refugee from Lebanon. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming here. Yariv Oppenheimer, CEO of Peace Now. Good evening.
Good evening.
And also Ari Briggs, Director of the International Department at Regavim. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. So you call it the Jewish Nakba. Let's understand why.
About 1 million Jewish were left the Arab countries from Arab persecution in the 100 years ago. These Jewish people were loyal to the Arabs, but the Arabs had killed them, tortured them, took their properties, especially in Iraq, in Egypt, and they found refuge in Israel and other Western countries. We have all our lands are in their hands. We hear always about the Palestinian Nakba, and no one speak about the real Nakba, about the Jewish Nakba in the 20th century.
So maybe people don't speak about the Jewish Nakba, and regarding maybe the Arab Nakba is because maybe if the Jewish people were claiming that their property was taken in the Arab countries and they will get it back, maybe it will give some kind of right to the Arab people who are living here, and they experienced their Nakba, and they will say, you know what, the Jewish people got their property back, we want our property also, regarding what happened in 48.
But the Arabs don't believe about our Nakba. I talked with Arabs. They told me, go to Iraq, go to Syria, come take your home, come take your lands. They don't believe in it. They only see themselves, especially the Palestinians. They think that they are always victims. There are Jewish properties, there are Jewish lands, there are many Jewish lost their life because the Arab persecution, because the Arab nationalism, because also the creation of Israel. The Arabs couldn't beat Israel. They couldn't win the war. All their anger were toward the Jewish that were loyal to their countries.
You know, I'm trying to understand. Tomorrow the parliament will mark this day and will mark the Jewish Nakba. What is it exactly? Is it, let's say, a step to say, okay, we understand this, we declare that this happened, and let's put it behind us? Or is there some kind of a meaning for this declaration coming from the State of Israel?
There is a political argument. The history can be interpreted by political means and political ambitions. And this is, by the way, it's important to speak about it, and I'm happy about it. And I'm also happy that people are speaking also about the Palestinian Nakba. We made crimes to the Palestinians and the Arabs did it to us in the past. No one is really innocent. And it's good to speak about it, but I think that we need to look forward. And when I look at the past and I see the petition plan and I see that the Israeli Arabs, the Palestinians that were living here, didn't accept it, And today maybe they feel that they made a mistake, because today they are speaking only about 22% of the land, and in the petition plan it was 46%. So maybe they are now saying
1967.
Yeah, and they are saying what have we done? What did we do? We destroy our future by not accepting the compromise. And I'm saying to the Israeli public today the same. Why we are not accepting today the compromise? And if we will think that it's a zero-sum game and we will like to see the whole of Israel and not just part of it, we might find ourselves, like the Palestinians today, feel bad that we are not taking the deal that is today on the table, the 67 borders. So I think that we need to learn in the past, and also we need to remember that Zionist movement is not just the Jewish people creating its own state in Israel. It's about the world to recognize the state of Israel, and then Israel announce itself and actually go to independence. And we here in this political thing called the State of Israel, we are here because of many reasons, but also because of the reason that the world accepts it. And if the world is not accepting the Israeli occupation, we need to take it into account.
So if we will talk about some kind of a recognition for the Jewish Nakba, what good will come out of it? I'm trying to think to myself.
Before that, let's just correct some revisionist history we just heard. Yariv likes to say to look forward and then picks and chooses what parts of history he wants to talk about. What's this 30%, 25%? What are these percentages? The only percentage that is important was this wasn't the first partition plan in 1947. The first partition plan was in 1920, actually 1922. In 1920, San Remo was in the agreement gave the whole of the British mandate to establish the Jewish nation. In 1922, that was divided, and 76.9% was cut off, extracted without agreement, and a new Arab country was established, which was called then Transjordan, today's Jordan. So what the Jews got left with was 23.1%. So that's the number that's important here. It's the 23.1%. Now you're talking about dividing again, and then you choose another arbitrary number, 67, because that's the deal on the table. We have to accept every deal that's on the table. That's not on the table. It's never been on the table. These partition plans, that was actually enforced on the 1949 armistice lines. And in the law that enforced it, there was the David Ben-Gurion clause, which said any other territory that was then taken would become sovereign, and Jerusalem was then annexed, as was the Golan added to. And they changed the law, and they changed the law.
But not by,
because they changed the law by mistake, by the mistake of the leaders in 1967 for sure. But we have to look at 1947, which again, 29th of November 1947, it's an arbitrary number. Why choose the 1967 or 1949 armistice lines? Why not talk about going back to the 1947? That's what the world, you just said, gave us. He didn't give us 1949 or 1967, gave us in inverted commas 1947. Would you prefer to go back to those borders? I mean, 1967 was called Auschwitz borders by Albert Eban.
So, you want to answer?
I think that we need to look at the reality, and the reality today that Israel is not annexing the West Bank, and not by mistake. Israel know exactly what it's doing, and we know that once we will annex the West Bank, we will not be a Zionist state anymore, and the Zionist character of Israel will disappear. And this is and Jewish and not Zionist, because then you don't have a majority of Zionist people in Israel, and therefore it's not by mistake. And yes, the world also is changing its views, and also in the history of Israel in the past we know that nations changed their views regarding the Zionist movement, and they accepted one day, and then one day they deny it. So the history is full of changes. Eventually we need to think what is going on today, and today the only deal that is on the table is the 67 border.
Before you answer, Ari, I just want to talk about today. And what is happening today in the Middle East is that there is no border. There is no borders. There are no borders between the Arab countries, no Lebanon, no Syria, no Iraq, no Yemen, no nothing.
No minorities.
So what do you want to get? Where do you want to go back? Or if you want to go back?
No, this is a cynical response of the Arabs. We don't want to get back to Iran. I grew up in Lebanon. I was born in Lebanon. I had Christian friends, Muslim friends. We didn't have a problem. Only when Hezbollah kidnapped Jewish communities, leaders, we had to escape from this country. This is the extremism. It's Hezbollah yesterday, today it's ISIS, it's Daesh. There's no military, there's no minorities in the Middle East. The Arabs, extremist Arab, don't want to see any minorities in this Middle East.
I want to go back to the point that you're mentioning, and the point that you're mentioning is the Nakba, is the refugees, the Jewish refugees that came out from these Arab countries and found their home in the Jewish land. So my question is, what are you exactly demanding from the Arab countries?
We want our lands, our homes. The government of Egypt confiscated some milliard of dollars from Jews from Egypt. They took their lands and they deported them. The government of Iraq, especially I'm saying Iraq and Egypt because they are the both countries confiscated the Jewish properties. We have properties, people have factories, people have lands. These lands belong to the Jewish ancestors, to the Jewish families. We need to take it back.
I'm trying to
This
find
is
some
justice.
rational.
This is
no,
minimum.
I understand that this is justice, and but again, if
Yeah,
the Jewish people are
I think we need to be very careful with that claim, because if today
is
the
it
Palestinian,
rational to ask something from Lebanon, from Egypt, to ask factories and lands from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Syria, when they don't even have peace agreement?
if this
with
is
Southern
rational, so also the right of return of Palestinians into the heart of Israel, maybe including the place that we are now today, will be rational as well. I think that it's a very risky thing to demand the right of return of Jews to all the places in which they were deported
There's
from.
no link between two
And
things.
No, I think
the Palestinian issue
it's
not my problem.
I cannot ignore, and I don't want to ignore what happened in the past, but we need to look forward. And when we look forward, we need to say to the Palestinian refugees that used to live in Tel Aviv, you cannot come here as citizens anymore. You have your own state. We will have to find you a place in which you will have full citizenship. And we need to be happy that the the Jewish people living in the Arab world came into Israel, made Aliyah, and eventually they are citizens of Israel. And the next generation is not enthusiastic to go back. I'm saying this is terrible things that happen in the history. It's happened in Europe. It happened in the Middle East. It happened in the Arab countries. We need to recognize that. But I don't think that we should now demand the Arab countries to get back the people that fled, because then immediately the response will be take back the Palestinian refugees.
We're hearing like these claims, which, I'm trying to think in a rational way about what is happening here in the Middle East. I'm trying to think to whom the Jewish people can approach in Syria, to whom they can approach in Iraq, to whom they can approach in Lebanon to ask their property back. And this is, I'm really sorry, but this is seems like unrealistic almost to actually demand these things back, because it won't happen unless, may peace be upon us all, and the Messiah will come and everything will be happily ever after.
And these countries are imploding in front of us. I mean, the whole idea of looking forward, you can't look forward. You've got to look at the present and see these countries imploding around us. Borders in the Middle East are meaningless. They were set up by colonial powers. The only thing we have to do is in our interest, not in the interest of any other country anywhere in the world. It has to be in the nation state of the Jewish people's interest. That's what we need to focus on. And we do need to say that a million Jews were pushed out of their homes and they found a home here. And so those people that weren't pushed out but that left because they were told they would come back victorious and throw the Jews into the sea, they should find homes, citizenship in those countries they fled to, or other third parties that want to take them. And really, this is what should be.
This is exactly what I'm asking. Isn't this will open a Pandora box, maybe that Israel doesn't want to open? Even Mahmoud Abbas said that he is not planning to go back to Safad. He is not planning to go back to any of the deserted or after the 48 Nakba.
He retracted it soon afterwards based on pressure from refugees in Lebanon.
If anyone is actually, any Palestinian leader will actually think that he's able to get back millions of Palestinians who were exiled in 48. So I think that isn't this something like that can open a Pandora box?
This is not a game. However, it is important that where we've heard these claims of Palestinian refugees for the last 67 years, it's important that we state that we as a people, were also refugees, that 1 million refugees came
So maybe
from
the
the Arab
two-state
countries.
solution should be the solution.
The two states already exist. There's Jordan. It was divided in 1922 into an Arab state and a Jewish state. There was Jordan was established and the
This
Jewish
is not,
state was
but this is
established.
not the border that we're talking about. If you
is
are
exactly
talking
the
about
border.
looking at what is happening now, so what is happening now is that there
It
is
is an
no
existing
two
boarding.
states.
It's
with
along the
Jordan.
Jordan River.
I
few
don't know
years
what is
ago-
realistic less, that Jewish people will go back to Syria now to live in Syria, or that the Palestinian will go to live in Jordan.
is the Arab
Both
version.
are
I didn't say
realistic
that.
in the same
I
way.
didn't say
This is
that.
the
I
Arabic
said the
version.
border.
A few years ago, they talked about Clinton Fund. To create a fund, Israel will put money, will pay money, and all the Arab countries will pay money. This money will go to the Palestinian refugees and the Jewish refugees. There was some talk. In the media, we don't see it too much, but behind the curtain, there are talks about this problem. There will be no solution, listen, for the Palestinian refugee unless they will have solution for the Jewish refugees.
I want
There
to
will
just
be.
But there is a
put
solution for
pin
the
in
Jewish
bubble.
refugees,
I
the
just
state
want-
of Israel.
No,
I just want to put a pin in
Properties.
the bubble. I'm sorry because we have to finish, but I just want to put a pin in the bubble. The Palestinians are waiting for some kind of a help from the Arab countries, and they are not getting it. Not from the Arab countries, not from their own leaders. So I don't know if they will help the Palestinians, the Jewish exiled community, but at least the Jewish have a homeland. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with me. That's it. Tomorrow we'll be here again at the same time, same place from Jaffa Port, Israel. Have a great night.